Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I'm doing the final wrap up of 2022. All of the books I read in December. Now, I'm actually not talking about all of the books I read because I have decided that I just want these wrap ups to be the books that I want to talk about and that I really enjoyed, and not necessarily focus on books that I didn't like and I don't recommend. I don't know if I'll do this for every single month, but I think for December, I just wanted to pare it down and talk about the books that I want to talk about. Without further ado, I'm going to go by genre. No creative wrap up this time. Let's just get into it. The first genre and the first book I'm going to be talking about rather quickly is White Tears, Brown Scars, How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color by Ruby Hamad. I actually have further thoughts and feelings about this book in a nonfiction recommendations video if you'd like to see that. But this is an excellent look at white feminism and how white women weaponize their whiteness and their tears to harm women of color. And this has both examples and stories from within the US and outside of the US, as Ruby Hamad is an Australian writer. Very quickly, I'm going to run through the romance books that I read. The 3-star romance read of the month was Donut Fall in Love by Jackie Lau, and this is about a woman named Lindsay who runs a bakery and a movie star named Ryan who is kind of dealing with some things. He's kind of on a hiatus. And Lindsay is teaching Ryan how to bake in preparation for a baking competition show that Ryan is going to be on. And this was a 3-star read, so this was just okay. I really enjoyed Ryan as a character. He had a lot more depth and personality and weight to him than Lindsay. Lindsay was really self-conscious a lot of the times, and I found that actually quite annoying. So the emotional weight of the story was heavily weighted towards Ryan and not Lindsay. Lindsay didn't have as much going on for her outside of the romance. The romance itself I thought was cute, but it wasn't a perfect romance for me. Next, we have The Sweetest Connection by Denise Williams. This is a friends to lovers novella set at an airport, and this is about two friends, Tegan and Silas, who have been friends for a long time, and they both work at an airport, and they find a list someone has written, pros and cons wise, saying, should I tell this person I love them or should I not? And they think it's kind of about the other person. So they're on a quest to discover who the list was created by and who it could be referring to, but also this kind of silly antics brings them together as a couple as well. And I thought this was really cute, actually. This was a friends to lovers that I actually enjoyed. I don't think I'm going to be seeking out friends to lovers much in the future. However, this was a solid one for me. Next, we have Always Only You by Chloe Leese. This is about our main character, Frankie, who is disabled, and she is a social media coordinator for a hockey team, one of the hockey players named Ren, and it is a romance between the two of them. And this one was really, really cute. Ren is a really big softie. It's a grumpy sunshine where Frankie is the grumpy one and Ren is the sunshine one, and I really appreciated that dynamic. I thought the disability representation was phenomenal in this book. The struggles that the main character has were part of her, but it didn't really impact the romance necessarily, and Ren didn't try to sweep in to save her. A couple things that I appreciated. Ren is the virgin in this scenario, which is kind of refreshing to see an unexperienced male protagonist. The casual use of marijuana, both for recreation as well as pain management for Frankie, I think that we need to talk about that more and have positive representation for that in the media. This has some good smut. I really liked the smut in here. The one thing I didn't like was the Harry Potter references, and I went into a whole rant about this in a recent video, but stop making Harry Potter references. The last romance I want to talk about was also a 4-star read, and that was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This is about our main character, Mika Moon, who creates witchy videos on the internet, and she's actually a witch. And one day she is kind of hired to be the witch tutor of three magical young ladies. And so she travels to a house where they are living and has some staff there. And Jamie is the librarian of the house. And he's kind of been taking care of these girls for a really long time. And this is not only a romance, but a found family story, a cozy fantasy in the vein of The House in the Cerulean Sea. So if you're looking for another cozy found family fantasy vibes, I highly recommend this one. It wasn't perfect for me, but I still really enjoyed it and ended up giving it 4 stars. The next genre I'm going to talk about is horror, and I read one horror novel that I want to discuss today, and that is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This is very complicated. We've got kind of 2 timelines happening. We have the present and the past, and in the past timeline, 2 young girls who went to a prestigious all-girls academy were found dead under some mysterious circumstances, and this is a story of like their death and the aftermath of that at the school with the headmistress and some of the teachers and kind of the drama ensuing there. This is also following a present timeline where there is a film crew, a writer and 2 actresses who are involved in a project to retell the story and create a movie surrounding these girls' deaths. So you kind of have 2 timelines and lots of main characters. Every single main character in this book is queer in some way and is sapphic in some way. I think there's like, by the end of this book, 6 main characters, and they are all queer. All queer women. I did like the vibes of this book. It's very, very slow-paced horror, which is something I've learned that I appreciate. And so if you're not into nothing happening, maybe don't pick this one up. The thing that I appreciate about this work overall is the theme of like obsession and becoming obsessed with people, and kind of the toxic relationship you can form when you feel like you're trapped with that person, or you're obsessed with that person. And so we have kind of a polyamorous triad in the present timeline of 3 women, and then there's some queer romances in the past that aren't all puppies and unicorns. And I think that exploration was really well done in this book. This has very, very, very stylistic writing, which again might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I actually really, really enjoyed that. The one reason I'm not giving this a 5-star is because there is a bit of a villain monologue at the end that explains kind of the scenario, what's going on, and I just didn't like how we received that information. I would have preferred if the main characters would have discovered that on their own instead of being monologued at. This was still very, very good. I was gripped the whole time, and it was very moody and atmospheric, and exactly what I want out of a horror novel. Bees are very scary in this book. Next we have fantasy and sci-fi, and with a 3-star read we have The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang. This is a queer sci-fi retelling of Joan of Arc, and the reason I didn't love this is because this is written with a very stylized framing narrative. So we actually have some god characters that are retelling the story of Joan of Arc, or the Joan of Arc character in this book, and that kind of framing narrative just distances us so much from the main character that I didn't feel emotionally attached to them. This story was very queer. There's a queer threesome in here that came out of nowhere. This does have elements of like visions and religion and stuff like that. So it did have all of the pieces that I would typically enjoy of this type of like retelling. However, just that framing narrative and that writing style really didn't work for me. I will say, if you are fans of Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, The Outside by Ada Hoffman, or The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie, I highly recommend this book. The Raven Tower, especially with how that story is told from a god character's perspective, I think the correlation between these two works would really work. If you enjoyed one, you might like the other. It just didn't work for me emotionally. Then we have a 3.5-star read, which is The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin is clearly one of my favorite authors, and The World We Make is a direct sequel to The City We Became. And I was pretty disappointed in this. I still ended up giving it a 3.5 star because I enjoy N.K. Jemisin's writing so much. However, this felt like a step back in terms of the character work that she had established in The City We Became without giving too many things away. It is the same villain, it is the same cast of characters, and almost the same struggle. They are just concluding the conflict from book one, whereas I thought book one ended in kind of a satisfying way and almost didn't need the sequel, so this felt to me kind of tacked on at the end. Didn't have much character growth. There was like a couple characters that end up forming romances, and like the characters end up doing things and changing and growing, but in terms of character development, not much happens with the characters. It's mostly plot driven, whereas I feel The City We Became is more character driven. So it's like once she established the characters, then she was able to tell the plot that she wanted. This is also much shorter than book one, and honestly, it could have been longer for me. We could have drawn some things out and just had more time to develop some of these character relationships that were happening. So 3.5 stars, still, you know, a solid read. I enjoyed it, but just a little bit of a disappointment for me personally with N.K. Jemisin. Really quickly, I do want to talk about a book. However, it is published by HarperCollins, and there is a HarperCollins union strike happening right now. So I'll very quickly say I support the strike. And the book I'm talking about is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I will have a full review for this book up once the strike is complete, but I did enjoy this. And the last book I'm going to be talking about is my favorite read of December, and it was the last thing I read of the year. So coming in hot was Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher with a 4.5 out of 5-star rating. This was adorable. This is a cozy fantasy romance about a perfumer and a paladin, and the paladin's name is Stephen, and his god that he is sworn to dies in the beginning of the book. And so he is dealing with the trauma of being a paladin to no one, and he doesn't really feel like he has a purpose anymore. And he's dealing with that loss and trying to figure out what he wants with his life. And then we are following the perfumer, whose name is Grace, and she is dealing with there's a murder investigation happening and she might be implicated. She struggles with some anxiety, and I think the two of them are perfect for each other. This had the perfect balance to me of a cute romance between Stephen and Grace, as well as overarching plots. So there's a serial killer who is beheading people throughout the city. There is a murder investigation, and the two may or may not be combined, as well as Grace dealing with an ex-husband who is coming back into the picture possibly, as well as Stephen's like emotional turmoil with his purpose in life. And so I thought the way that those things balanced on top of the romance was really well done. This has T. Kingfisher's signature humor, which I absolutely adore. I laughed out loud several times. This has some steam in it. There is one smut scene if you are looking for that type of romance, but this just, I smiled the entire time I was reading this book, even though there's some serious things happening. You know, serial killers, a murder mystery, you know, Grace is on trial, things are pretty dire, but it still felt like things were gonna be okay. And of course it's a romance, so there is a happily ever after at the end of this one. I cannot wait to read the sequel, which follows other paladins in Stephen's group, and I think it's going to be a great time. I'm so happy I read this, and I think officially T. Kingfisher can be a new favorite author, because I've now read 3 of her works and have really liked all of them and loved Paladin's Grace. The other thing I enjoyed about this book is I enjoyed all the side characters as well, and there is casual queer representation and queer acceptance throughout a lot of her work, which I'm just finding very comforting. And this was the best thing I read this month, or the most fun for me, and I kind of wish I had waited to make my favorites, because this might have been on my favorites video of the year, but alas, it is what it is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all had an excellent reading year in 2022, and I hope 2023 finds you even more favorites. I will see you in another video of mine very soon, okay? Bye, everyone.